We all have preferences, things we prefer, alternatives we would rather over others. And sometimes, if we're not careful, those things can derail us. So, on today's episode, let's talk about leading beyond your preferences. You are listening to The Joshua Mentality. Hello and welcome to another week of The Joshua Mentality. I am your host, Joshua, and I am so excited to have you all here on another week. I know I say that every week, but I really am excited. I really do value anyone and everyone who takes the time out of their day to tune into this podcast. So thank you. If you are new to this podcast, I want to remind you that this podcast is really geared towards the intention behind this podcast is to talk about life purpose and defining success for your life. There's a lot of people walking around who don't really have a sense of urgency in their lives, or may even feel like, I'm still trying to find my life, find my passion. This is for you. It's for your, this podcast was created for your audience. All right. So hopefully you'll be able to take some valuable things away from these conversations that would add value to your life. All right. So welcome. Those of you who are returning, I want to say welcome back to another week. We are now in week, oh my gosh, I'm losing track of my count here. Where are we at now? We are in week 22, the final week of July. And then we're fresh into August, fresh into football season. So, man, here we go, y'all. 22 weeks is where we're at now. And I hope that kind of fires you up a little bit to get the most out of these next. Imagine if you kind of hunkered down for the next 22 weeks, how that would catapult you into 2022. And I know that might sound a little stressful for some people, but that's why we bite-size the things around here. You all know how we do it. We try to make things practical and really put on a new frame when we look at certain challenges, some of the common challenges that come with life. So hopefully that helps you kind of frame out the rest of your year and will encourage you to get the most out of it. All right. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about leading beyond your preferences. And this is actually a topic that I got into on IG, I think a few weeks ago. It's one of my favorite topics because I think it is so appropriate. It's always an appropriate topic, but I think it's even more so appropriate for where we are living in today's kind of crazy world. We still got COVID. COVID is like the roaches in your house that they won't go away. They won't go away. And I grew up in the hood, so this is really a near and dear analogy to me. It's like you buy all the roach spray, you buy the roach traps, and they just won't go away. And that's how COVID has felt for a lot of us. And if we're honest, even COVID and maybe even some variables beyond COVID, it's put us all in positions where we have to acknowledge and deal with consequences or alternatives that are not our preferences. That just are not, they aren't. They're not our preferences. For some, it's as simple as wearing a darn mask. It's like, that's not my preference. I hate the idea of having to walk around with a mask on. For others, it's not being able to go to some of their, favorite places, do some of their favorite things because they have to be very cautious of contracting something. For others, it's having to work this job or getting furloughed during this crazy economic time, or leaving your job because you got a chance to experience what it's like to focus on the more important things in life. And so now you face some alternatives that aren't your preference as far as maybe your finances is concerned. And the list goes on and on. The list goes on and on and on and on. But what I would like for you to get from today's episode is I would like to help you kind of scale back the scope a little bit. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the displeasure, the disappointment of having to carry options that are outside of our preference, that we can miss out on that silver lining, on that blessing, on that opportunity that is present within that preference that we would prefer not to have. And I know that's I'm going to figure out a way to break that down a little more simplistic, because I don't want you to miss that. That is extremely important. Wherever you're at right now in your life, that's you're dealing with something that's not your preference. And I just named a few examples, but I want you to think about the one that pertains to your life. And I want you to ask yourself, is there anything, or maybe not even a closed-ended question, let's go with an open-ended question. What about this preference? What about this preference of where you're at in your life now? Could you look at it from a different angle and find something positive, find an opportunity in it? What would that be? And I know immediately our brain wants to tell us there is none. And let's be, honest. Let's be frank. There are certain situations and challenges that there isn't anything good about it. That is not the preference we have, and it's just, it all sucks. But I'm going to get to that in a little bit later as well. But for now, I think it's important to just start off with that assessment. What can be good about this? Whatever situation or preference you find yourself in. And I'll use an example. I'll tell you a story. I think it was around 2014 actually. And I had not too long ago, I had graduated, I think like 2012, 13-ish, like towards the end of the year. And I had my bachelor's degree, man. I had my bachelor's degree in interpersonal communication. And I'm out looking for an opportunity, a career. And I had made a promise to myself that I wanted to work in a place that I would be excited to get up and go to work every day. Just because I've always been really keen and passionate about life purpose and defining success. And so I knew after graduating and after going through that whole process of even, figuring out college, because I didn't always think I'd go to college. But after getting to that growth spurt or growth stage, I realized, you know what? I don't want to spend the rest of my life waking up going to a job I hate. I had done that. I had painted houses. I had pressure washed sidewalks. I had went and worked in call centers where, that's a funny story. That call center actually got closed down because it was a scam. But I worked there calling people, trying to sell stuff, and it was terrible. I even let's see, what else? What other unpleasant jobs that I have to do? Oh, I worked one time. I won't name the famous sport team, but if you know where I live, it's probably not hard to imagine. But I worked in this place having to stand up every night at this darn ticket sanction thing, taking tickets, and just standing there all night, wondering what am I doing in my life? And no shade to those jobs. Those jobs are important. But those jobs were definitely not my preference. It definitely was not where I saw my life. It definitely was not where I saw my potential. Furthermore, I realized, I was just thinking about this week, kind of looking at some financial targets and goals for this year. And I realized in that year, I'm going to get real personal here. I got to tell you all this. In that year, when I look at my W-2, I lived off of, I don't even know how, I lived off of $14,000 for a year. Now, to some of you, that may sound like a lot of money. But anyone out there paying rent, especially in today's market, that might last 3 months. But at that time, I had my own apartment, and so I had responsibilities, and it was tough. And I got a bachelor's degree. I'm applying for job after job after job after job. My girlfriend, my then girlfriend, now wife, was getting antsy and wanting to get married, which of course you don't date just to, well, I learned that at that point, you don't date just to, kind of fool around. But she had a plan. She wanted to, hey, are we serious about this? And I'm like, Girl, I only got I can barely take care of what's in my lap right now. And so I think every aspect of my life, or at least it felt that way, was the opposite of my preference. And you may be listening to this and find yourself in a season like that currently. That boss you have is totally the opposite of your preference. The friends you have are totally the opposite of what you wish you had. The amount you're getting paid, the job you hold, the trajectory your life is winning, the direction your life is winning, the mistakes you've made that have cost you. It may feel like just so many things that are not your preference. But here's what I want to encourage you with today. I want to encourage you to lead beyond your preference. Lead beyond your preference. And the good news is, I'm not just going to leave you with that statement because that sounds easy. But the question is, how do you lead beyond your preference? And there's a lot of ways, but I'm going to stick to 2 or 3 here, depending on how many we can get through. But the first one I would say, if you are going to lead beyond your preference, and I may sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again because it applies in this context as well. If you are going to lead beyond your preference, you have to do the work of discovering who you are, what your profile is, which means your gift, strengths, talents, all those things. And you have to put in the work to go through that dreams. Remember those zones we talk about all the time, the mentality of success, 4 zones: dreams, discovery, development, decisions. And I'm going to do a 2-for-1 here. Number one, you have to be willing to put in the work if you're going to lead beyond your preferences. But here's why that's important. Because putting in that work will apply vision to your life. Putting in the work, and I know it's frustrating. Trust me. In that season of my life where nothing seemed to be going like I would prefer it to go, the only thing that kept me afloat was the vision inside of my mind of where I was going. I was freaking. There was a certain particular organization I felt called to go work for, and I think I at least got 50 rejection letters. And we're not even talking about a high-paying job, man. There are people right now sitting home making more than I was making coming into this organization. But I knew I was supposed to be there because I knew it was more than money that I needed. Why? Because I had done the work. I knew I need to find a place with a leader that can help me develop, because I know 5 years from now with this job, I'm ready for the next thing. But that didn't happen overnight. And those of you who know my story, you really know that didn't happen overnight. But it came from doing the work, the dreams, going through that dream zone. And if you are in the Orlando area, let me just say this, and you have not looked into this YPN event that's happening Thursday in Maitland, Florida at the Missionary Ventures location. Again, that's Maitland, Florida Missionary Ventures. It's a young professional network, ages 18 to 39. If you have not really looked into this, I encourage you to do so. Because one of the things I'm going to go through is that I'm going to be speaking that night. And I'm going to go into this whole activating your dream and how to really search those dreams. And I haven't gotten into that here yet, but we're going to do that in the future as well. But I would encourage you to be there, number one, because I think that's an important message. But number two, there's a network there that I think would add value to your life. In fact, I know it would. Because if it wouldn't, I wouldn't be a part of it. So that's my little random public service announcement. If you're in the area, don't miss that. Get there. All right. But back to my point. It was really being able to go through that process that helped me to gain that vision in my life, which helped me to know where I was supposed to be going, or at least what direction I was supposed to be going. Even if not, some of you may feel like, well, Josh, I kind of have a sense of direction, but I don't know what the particular thing is. That's fine. Get moving in that direction. I didn't know what position specifically I needed to work at in this organization. I just knew I was supposed to be underneath the mission of that organization. and a great leader within that organization. And so I went after it. And every denial letter, I felt like I got more resilience. And there were some people around my circle who their worries didn't match my preference. Like their sense of, faith in the situation didn't match my preference. And that's not a bad thing. It's just normal human behavior. But I did not allow that to impact my vision. And I want you to do the same thing. Your circumstances may have a lot of challenges. God knows, especially in today's world, there's probably, too many to count challenges. But do not let that clog and fog your brain to allow that to dictate how you lead. If your finances aren't how you prefer them, lead anyways. How do you lead? Start looking at your budgeting. Start looking at what you can control. Start looking at what the discipline it's going to take to put together a simple emergency fund. That's what I mean when I say lead beyond your preferences. Lead beyond your preferences. We have to. I'm talking to the leaders, and I believe if you're listening to this podcast, you are a leader. We as leaders, we have to grow the resilience to be able to look beyond our preferences. And I feel like I've talked about this before on this podcast, but it's worth revisiting. We have to learn to lead beyond our preferences because we all know there's too many times during the day and during the week where we don't feel like doing something. It's not our preference. I don't feel like going for a walk. I don't feel like, maybe getting a workout in. I don't feel like focusing on that work, focusing on that thing I know I need to. Those are the moments where you grow. Those little moments are where you can grow a tremendous amount of value towards your future because you are practicing the art of leading beyond your preferences. So again, if you want to learn how to do that, first thing I would tell you is focus on putting in the work. Go back a few episodes or however many you need to go where we talk about the zones of dream, discovery, development, decision. We'll be talking about those more in the future. And then follow on Instagram. Like, get involved in a network. Get the voices in your life that will remind you who you are and how valuable you are. And that will help you to see beyond your preferences when things aren't aligning with where you thought you were going. That's so important. That's so important. Yes, those things I described in my life were tough, but trust me, that's why I had to get aggressive with it. I had to get aggressive with cutting out all the negative voices, staying away from all of those who would try to encourage me to lean into the circumstance instead of look above my preferences. I had to self kind of regulate. And if that's what you need to do, don't worry, your friends will still love you if they're really your friends. But if you need to step away for a moment because they keep, their voices are pushing you towards making your circumstances a home instead of looking above those preferences or lack of preference, I guess, then pull yourself away. Pull yourself away for a little bit and do what you need to do. Because your future, your purpose is worth, or let me say it this way, your future and your purpose is not worth you forfeiting because life currently doesn't match your preference. I almost clapped for myself. That's good. Hit the 15-second back button. That's good. Now, actually, I think I can repeat it again. Do not, your purpose and your value, it's too important for you to miss out, for you to forfeit because your current circumstances didn't match your preference. I know it's tough. I know it's frustrating. I know you might even look around and wonder why is everybody else not experiencing it? Listen, those are traps. And the traps for you to begin to look at yourself in a negative light and accept just this low way of living. But I'm calling you above that. And I believe that at least those of you who have been listening to this podcast, who reach out to me and tell me about how this is adding value to your life, I know that you are the kind of leader that can rise above your preferences. And so my encouragement today that I want you to take with you is to be that leader. Lead beyond your preferences. Take a moment today to think about the areas of your life that are going well. What silver lining can you focus on? Do your legs still work? Did your eyes open up today? You can start with just those simple things, because those are all indicators that opportunity is still ahead of you. If you got children, are they healthy and breathing well? Then you have things to be grateful for. The job that you do have, what can you learn from that? What can you take from that? The car that you do have, y'all heard about my 96 Honda, where I had to roll down the window just to let myself out the car. But I drove that thing with pride and pulled right up in front of my wife's house and said, get in, Go back and listen to that episode. She got in the car. But my point is, that's a silly analogy, but it's the same thing. You don't let your preferences, because I don't have a car with automatic windows. That means I have to be ashamed. Or just because you didn't graduate or you didn't finish that life is over for you. No. Get your butt up. Start looking beyond your preferences. Yes, it wasn't as easy as you thought it was going to be, but that means you still have what it takes to get it done, because you're still here. All right? So hopefully that helps. I hope that adds value to your life. That's the whole point of doing this. But let me know. Send me a message. Reach out. Let me know how this is adding value to your life. If it is, make sure you like, comment, subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this podcast on, so that you do not miss an episode. All right. Again, this is for you, and it's to add value to your life, because it is my goal that you live out the success that your life was meant for. All right. So I'm going to get on out of here. You all have a wonderful hump day. And as always, I will see you here, same time, same place next time, reminding you that success is your destiny.